Here we go for another episode of Always Another Game podcast, where today I have with me the strength and conditioning lead of England Ice Hockey, the owner of Train Hockey Smart and former professional ice hockey player and good friend of mine, Rupert Quiney. How's it going, Rupert?
Awesome, mate. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. I like these ones. I've not had many ice hockey ones, just almost on purpose, because I just didn't want to overload it with ice hockey players. But when you do it, it's so funny because there's just this different link that you know the person, and it's interesting to hear your guys' stories from knowing you so well as well.
Well, yeah. So it's interesting you say that actually, because I had very much the same rationale as I was transitioning from ice hockey into my SSC career. I was very much like I want to go get my degree. I want to get my master's degree because I don't necessarily want because to be frank, I didn't think there would be many opportunities in high performance sport within ice hockey in this country. So I was like, if I get my degree, I get my qualification, I'll be able to go work in pro rugby, pro football or something like that. But then because of my experience in the ice hockey network, it's like all it took really was there one job to sort of come up and then drag me back in. So it wasn't. Yeah, it's funny how you can never really escape the ice hockey world once you've been immersed in it for a certain amount of time, right?
Yeah, it's an incredible network. It really is, and I've been a big admirer of what you're doing, because when I finished playing, or when I was still kind of winding down my career, that was my thought. I'm going to help ice hockey players. I'm going to teach them how to train off the ice, and I found it was almost like banging my head against the wall at the time. A handful of players did it, saw success, but other people just weren't bothered. Just the type of career. But I think since that has happened, and obviously you are now at the Ozone, which is in Bracknell, it's a training facility. It's something that English ice hockey, UK ice hockey hasn't seen before. But now we have this platform for elite youth athletes to give them more bespoke training on and off the ice. And like I said, almost the timing was perfect, I suppose, in this for you.
Yeah, it's a funny one. Like I first started and get involved training hockey players. Well, privately, I've been training hockey players for quite a while, but organisationally, I guess I started when I was loosely involved with England back in 2020, when they sort of first put together a team of SSC coaches. And that was all like volunteer based. You just go and help out at camps and stuff like that, help run warm ups, do some testing and things. And that was like, for me, is like, that was my first glimpse on actually, okay, what are the level of athletes that we're working with? Where do we need to start if we're going to initiate some sort of culture change? And I kind of saw it as an opportunity. Like the more I spent time at those events and chat to parents, chat to players, it's like, it's not that people didn't want it. It's just there was a lack of fundamental knowledge, a lack of fundamental understanding amongst the ice hockey community, and amongst the coaches and the clubs and everything like that. It was kind of like, it was always the idea that they wanted something, but it was because they didn't necessarily have the SSC know-how. It was like it was always doomed to start because you didn't know which door to open first, right? So that's what led to me starting my business, seeing the opportunity that there are potentially ways you can cater to the hockey community as a whole. And for example, the facility at Ozone, what Danny Myers has done is a great example of that. Like, he went out on his own, started a business, not tied to a club, not tied to an organization, and he's shown that he can run a business which is profitable for ice hockey in this country. And my company, Train Hockey Smart, is very much the same, but it's obviously focused on the training side, and it's just the case of people will invest in it if you provide the right resources for the right price point and things like that. And I think you need more people, sort of independent thinkers like that, to be able to really help change that culture.
Yeah, I'm excited to dig into it more in the podcast on what has been missing, what do we see, what are we working on. But first and foremost, I love the audience really to get to know you a little bit more, and I want everybody to know it's Quiney, not Quinny. We've been informed that multiple times. So yeah, who is Rupert Quiney?
So first, I'll just address the Quiney thing with a funny story. When I was and this will link into who I am. It's like when I was playing and it was my first year with Cardiff. I think someone, whoever was doing the commentary in the stream, kept pronouncing it Quinny. So my dear mother actually tweeted at Cardiff Devils and the Cardiff Devils Supporters Club saying it's Quiney like tiny, not Quinny like skinny. And it's like I was like 22 years old. I got my mum like tweeting the bloody whole Cardiff Devils fat. It was
oh no,
kind of embarrassing, but I mean she explained it very, very well. So that goes into obviously I was a professional ice hockey player. Grew up playing in Streatham, and then when I was 19, made the jump to go play abroad in Canada, playing under 21s out there. Came back, started my pro career here. 2 years with Cardiff Devils, year for Telford Tigers, and then signed for Guildford. And now that's sort of, since I signed for Guildford, that's sort of where I set up my base. So that's much more where I live and work now. Since my ice hockey career was winding down, went into a career as an SSC coach. So went back to uni when I was 26, got my bachelor's degree, got my master's degree, started working in more of an ice hockey specific training context, I guess, from 2020. And the various opportunities within England ice hockey of now, like you said, I lead the SNC for England, and I was the SSC coach for the Guildford Flames in the Elite League for 2 seasons. So the starting 2022 to 2023 and then 23-24. Recently left there, and I now have the gym venture at Ozone, where we try and train not just ice hockey players, but lots of primarily youth athletes, and teach kids how to lift, how to do it safely, how to do it properly, what kind of strength standards they should have for their long-term athletic development and things like that. And we'll get into all the details of my beliefs with those sort of things. But my Rupert Quiney of today very much focuses on developing the culture of training around ice hockey and youth sports, and trying to make sure people are well prepared to go and play sport at a high level from an athleticism and physical standpoint.
Yeah, nice. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're British born and bred, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, where did ice hockey start for you? Because I do find this fascinating. For if you're from Canada or you went over there when you were young and stuff, it's quite obvious. But for British people, it's not a big sport. It's got a decent following, but yeah, where did it all start for you?
So for me, it's my dad played at a high level. So he grew up in Streatham, which isn't far. So my family home is in Croydon, and so he played for Streatham coming up in the 70s, and at that point, their senior team, formerly the Streatham Redskins, they were playing in the top flight. So they were playing against the Murrayfields, the Durhams. I'm trying to think who the other top. That the Elite League of today. That's what Streatham were playing in back then. They travelled all around the country, had decent following in that really old rink, so it's been a family sport forever. There's stints where obviously I started playing. Both my brothers played. My mum met my dad through watching ice hockey and being friendly with everyone in the ice hockey circles. So a lot of it was one of those things where if you have anyone that has it's a sport that just captures you, right? Like if you have family ties to the sport of ice hockey, you'll you will end up playing at some point. You'll end up loving it. And it was just every sort of family do. We were hanging out with ice hockey people, you know, people my dad had played with for a long time, or just and their families, and it was, I played every sport under the sun when I was a kid. I was just sport mad. I'd watch Match of the Day, Transworld Sport, like just everything. I was just sport obsessed. Ice hockey ended up being the one that sort of I got to at a good level and stuck with, and fundamentally enjoyed the most. And you know, when you have the family ties with it, it's like, you know, my dad was my coach for most of my juniors, so it's kind of becomes it's something that you like bond over with. Well, you know, like my dad was probably my biggest ice hockey role model for my whole career, really. You know, so yeah, it was there was going to be one of us that ended up sort of playing it for a long time, I think, given what my dad was doing.
Yeah, well, I had the pleasure of playing against your dad, actually, and actually,
oh, did you?
Yeah, he's one of the reasons why I know it's Quiney, because he played for Slough when I was growing up. So my parents, who watched the Jets and stuff, so hence why I never had an issue with your last name, and hence why I like to bring it up so much, so I can show off that I knew it. I remember playing against him.
We should probably say Peter Quiney is my dad, who we're talking about, for anyone that wanted to look him up or anything.
Yeah. So it was actually at the time Stretton were the old school ED1s, and I was just a whippersnapper at the time. I don't even know if I was probably under 14s, because you could at that time, you could play as a kid.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't have any rules on, you know, being a certain age. And I just always remember, like, you know, I'm playing against Pete Quiney, who I used to watch as a little kid, and I just remember him saying over and over again, just stop moving, just stay still, you know, holding on to me, because obviously I was just a young kid excited to be playing with grown-ups and just flying around the ice. And I just remember your dad over and over again, like, telling me to stop moving, stay here. So yeah, it's funny when you get kind of these throwbacks and these memories of hockey. But it's interesting. You said he was your coach, he was your inspiration. I get that a lot, whether it's parents or a coach has inspired somebody, a teacher, a sensei. I've had lots on the podcast. How did you find it? Because this is really interesting for me. As we were talking beforehand, I'm now coaching my boys' football team. It's tough. It's really tough. How did you find it, having your dad as the coach?
I thought it was great. Like, you know, I think you have to be, from the coach side, you have to have the right personality to be able to coach your sons, daughters, and be able to do it well. And I think the type of personality that works is, you know, not being the overbearing coach, you know, not like being able to be somewhat like humble and selfless, and not put, like, you know, I mean, I thinking back, like, some people might not agree with this, given everything that, like, because obviously I only have my perspective, but from my knowledge, like myself or my brother that my dad coached for a long time, like, you know, we didn't get any extra opportunities compared to other players because my dad was a coach. Like, we didn't get trainings off, but we didn't, you know, we had to work hard, like as hard, if not harder, because there was almost like an expectation of, you're the coach's son, you got to, you know, sort of lead by example, sort of thing. And that doesn't always happen, I guess. But no, I enjoyed it. I loved it. It was always something which was good for me, because, like, you know, I could, like, my dad would drive us to a game or something like that. We'd both play, and then we'd be able to just sit in the car for an hour on the way home and either talk about a game, talk about stuff, or just, you know, and it was always very relaxed. There wasn't like pressure there or anything. And, you know, that's, like, I can understand if like, I've got my dad to thank for that. I think the fact that he because he played at high level too, I think he understands that, you know, like, you want sport to be fun. Like, if you apply too much pressure to wanting to be good or wanting to get to a certain level, then it's like you can grow, you can learn to hate the sport really quick. And he never put me and my brother in a situation where like we felt like we had to do it for him or for other people. It was just we were doing it because we wanted to do it. And if we wanted to get good and we wanted to work hard, he would help facilitate that. If we didn't, then that's fine. Not everyone has that dynamic. So for me, it was great, and only like helped sort of my relationship with him and everything like that.
Yeah, I can resonate massively. I always say my dad was one of my best coaches as well, and same thing. There was always that little bit added pressure. I think the added pressure from my brother and I was because, generally speaking, we were, the better players of the team. So there was an expectation of, you should be showing up. You're the better players. It must have been a hard balance for him. Like I said, I'm experiencing now at a very young level, so there's a lot less pressure on it, but. It makes a lot of sense. It's for any parent coaches out there, it is a difficult job, but at the same time it's hugely rewarding and inspiring as well what you can do. But we mention it a lot, if there isn't the love there for the sport, it's never going to happen anyway. You can push and push and push your kid and they can be extremely talented, but if they don't love what they're doing, at some point they'll stop, they'll rebel, they won't go any further, because it is a massive part of anything you do, running your own business. Being a parent, you got to love it, and that's a massive part of it. So leading on there, obviously your dad's given you this platform, right? Because you did play professionally, you went to Canada. How would you sum up your playing career?
Well, that's a good question. I would say I probably shouldn't have got. It's a weird one because there's most players that played at the level that I played at growing up, like they weren't making it to the elite league. They weren't making it to pro. Like I played at Strep where it was all B league throughout. So really it's like I shouldn't have been the player to go and play in Canada or go play in the elite league, but I got there just because I worked really hard. I would just do whatever the team or the coach wanted me to do. Typically, been in many situations where I've been asked to do something which I'm, I've never done or not that confident in, but I've just gone and given it a go and just tried to make an impact however I can, rather than thinking that my game is a certain way and sticking just to that. Those sort of things allowed me to get to a higher level. But then on the flip side, so in one sense, I had no right getting to the level of which I got to. But then on the other hand, my career kind of got cut short when I felt like I still had loads of development left to do, because I was the type of player that would always just try and get better and do whatever I can. And it got cut short by injuries. And so it's sort of like I kind of shouldn't have been there, but then I still feel like I could have been way better. And so it's still a missed opportunity in my opinion. And it's sort of part of the reasons why I do what I do.
So for anybody that that's listening that maybe might not be hockey based, obviously it's not a massive followed sport. So in juniors, you'd often have an A league and a B league. So the best teams, whatever it might be, 8 to 10, and then the B league would be the next ones. And occasionally you get up and down, but like I said, you came from a B league team, which is, in hockey aspects, is, like you said, it's way off the mark, right? You shouldn't be making conference teams, England teams, if you're playing at that level. It was kind of like you got to be A league, you got to be in that's where you got seen. So where did that first opportunity come? Because like you said, you had the mindset, you saw you had a bit of a growth mindset, you were willing to work and earn it. But knowing what I know, people weren't looking at B league players. So where did that first opportunity come for you then that you did get your shot?
So I was. It wasn't until like I was probably 16, and I started playing for the Redskins, the senior team, and I was a very late developer. Um, so like I mean, anyone that has met me in person, they'll know like now I'm like 6'4", 17 stone. Like I'm bit big guy. But when I was 16, I was 5'9" and like 10 stone. So all through my juniors, I was kind of like average to undersized, to be honest, and was not as developed physically as other people. So kind of to keep up, I had to be a better skater, like just a more efficient skater. I had to be smarter. I had to use different attributes to be able to excel. But then it was when I got to seniors, and I then had a big growth spurt like post 16, like 16, 17, 18, that my play with the senior team really took a big step. And then I was in the situation where, right, okay, what do I do? Do I try and go up to play for an EPL team? Do I look to go and play abroad? And like I had to make those opportunities myself. It's not like I got scouted. You know, I had to like quit my job and sell my car and just fly over to Canada and have tryouts and stuff to try and get on a team out there. So it wasn't set up for me, but I managed to sort of get my spot somewhere and make it work. And then that's where being in the hockey culture, being on the ice every day, still sort of physically developing a little bit, playing with better players, but at the same time being on a team where it's like, because it was under 21s at that time, I could sort of step up and play a bigger role on the team. That was a massive developmental step for me. And when I came back when I was 22 and started playing in the Elite League, it's again, that was like completely new. I was very much the young Brit sort of prospect player that was just looking for an opportunity. So yeah, and then I guess your career, you always have, you know, you always need to be looking for opportunities, even if you're sort of at the end of your career, right? But yeah, it was sort of that 16 to 18 period for me where it's like my game just suddenly took a jump as I developed and stuff like that. That would have been the big game changer.
Yeah. No, this is massive though, because one thing I struggled with becoming a parent and seeing my boy starting playing sport was like, I was on the ice at 2 years old. I was playing at 5. But I came across players like yourself that were late bloomers. Like I knew a guy that came from roller hockey at 13 and made the England under-14 team. And I think this is really good to know for parents, is that there are opportunities. Your players may develop an awful lot later. They may not be the best player at 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. It doesn't mean it's over. If they love what they do, then they're willing to work. This opportunity can come 16, 17, 18. Like you said, it can come, a lot later. One thing I have found fascinating so far, purely because of our connection, that we were teammates at one point, and it didn't quite go to plan. And I don't know why, but I remember it clear as day what happened. When I say clear as day, I'll check a tiny bit on it. But obviously, you came over to the Bees at one point.
Yeah,
you didn't come at the start of the season. You came in late.
It was like January.
Rightly, yeah, do correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the first game you played, you got man of the match. And then it was the second game you got hurt.
I don't know if I got man of the match. You might be blowing my trumpet there.
I'm sure it was, because Roop's side, he's had a fantastic game. I think this is why I remember it so well, because you came in and you made your presence known, and then I'm pretty sure it was early in the second game you got hurt.
That part 100. So we went up. I had like one training with you guys, then we had to go off and play in Sheffield, and they were our big rivals to try and make playoffs. Right? I think we lost that game. And then the next game at home, I think we were playing against Basingstoke, because when my shoulder went in that game, it was like the start of the second period, I think. And of all people, I was battling with Vanny Antonov, like who's like nowhere near the same size as me.
He's a strong boy, though.
He is, and to be fair, it was just like it was just sort of like both going into the corner for a 50-50, and we just sort of like caught each other's skate, I think, and I think we both might have like stumbled, but my shoulder was at a point where all it took was me to stumble and like stick my hand on the board or something, and boom, shoulder gone. And then that was my illustrious Bracknell Bees career. One game in a period in, and then blown out shoulder, and that just goes to show the state my body was in physically at that point.
Yeah, I would say it wasn't the first time, was it, that the shoulder had gone?
No, that was the third time. So by that point, my first, when I signed for Guildford, so coming from Telford, we just won 2 of the trophies. I wanted to come a bit closer to home. I wanted to come, really cement myself in a good team. And my first game, I dislocated my shoulder, like first preseason game against Basingstoke. You were probably playing for Basingstoke, or you might have been playing for the Bees at that point. I can't remember. But yeah, my first game, dislocated my shoulder, and then I'm out 2 months while it heals. And, then I think I played from like December to February, dislocated my shoulder again. So I'm out the rest of that season. I go and have keyhole surgery to repair for a labrum repair and stuff like that. And then tried to come back the following season, and it was clearly not quite enough. And then it come out again, sort of, a few months into the season. And then it was at that point that I had the bigger op. So I had like more of a shoulder reconstruction in the February, and then sort of longer rehab into the season, carried on playing. But from that point on, it was like sort of the damage had already been done with my career in terms of it's like sort of lost out on the opportunity at Guildford. Not lost out, it's like injuries happen. That's just how it goes. But obviously that me signing for them didn't go to plan as I wanted. Me signing for Bracknell didn't go to plan as I wanted. You can, in your hockey career, you can only have so many of those before, coaches that want to sign you, they sort of lose faith in your ability to stay healthy. And it's like I just had to then just play for a season. I think so. I'll give him a shout on it. It was Lewis Clifford. He was the only guy that would sign me after my second shoulder up for MK Thunder when the leagues changed and there was like the crossover league between the old EPL teams and the NIHL 1 teams when they sort of formed a dual league and they had the North and South regions. Cliff was the only guy that would give me a deal because, like I've very quickly gone to the point where I was playing in the Elite League, looking to step down to get more ice, had loads of options, could sign for almost any team in that second league that I wanted. Same situation after Telford. And then as soon as I went through my shoulder stuff, I was like, I had one guy that would give me a shot and signed, played the whole season for them. And then after that, I was then being presented with opportunities. Coaches were messaging me and stuff like that. But, by that point, it's kind of like 27, 28, and all through those experiences of kind of, it's when you're professional, semi-professional sports person and you get into like your late 20s, it's like you start thinking about your next life stuff pretty bloody quick, right? And what is important, especially someone that's sustained a bunch of injuries. It's like, okay, if I commit big to like my hockey career, I get injured again and then I'm out of a job or whatever. You know, it's like the stakes are a bit higher when you're in your late 20s and you might have girlfriend, wife, you might have a property, you might have a mortgage you have to pay, some guys' kids. You know, it's you got to think really hard about, am I going to be prioritizing my professional playing career, or do I need to just focus all my time and effort into my next career, right? And that's sort of the position I was in.
Yeah. Sometimes we just need one person, right? Just one person to believe in us, and that's that power of coaching, networking, parenting. We only need that one opportunity. But it's really interesting through that whole injury talk. You said you used the word damage your career, whereas actually when we spoke beforehand, you now say that it shaped your career. Your injury shaped it in life after sport. So how has things worked out now then, knowing what you know from not maybe looking after yourself whilst playing, what has it taught you?
So I was, when I say it damaged or impeded my career, that's specific to my playing career. But what it has done is it's completely sort of shaped my thought process on the SSC side, right? So, for example, it would have been the exact same situation with you, I'm sure. Like when I was playing a contact sport against men before I could get my first gym membership. So in terms of physical preparedness to go play a contact sport at a high level, I had zero, right? And that wasn't from a lack of trying, or that wasn't anyone's fault. That wasn't, the fault of my club or anything like that. It was that's just the culture how it was. No one really knew better. And I was in a situation where I, in terms of learning how to train, learning how to be a professional athlete and stuff like that, I learned all that stuff at 26 after I sustained all of my injuries that had damaged my playing, right? And so now when I go into strength and conditioning mindset, like it's very much, and this is common thread in youth SSC these days, is if you're going to play a contact sport, you have to be strong long before you start playing that contact sport to reduce your risk of injury. And like there was when I was at uni, it was like my first or second year at uni when I was 26, 27, and I'm reading these papers of like journals from NFL, rugby, things like that, and it talks about relative strength standards. And that term, like I'd never heard before. Just having good relative strength. So relative strength is just how strong are you in relation to your body weight. So for example, a 2 times body weight back squat, that's a relative strength standard. And that would mean if someone weighed 100 kilos, they should be able to back squat 200 kilos.
Wow.
So 200 kilos. Well, like it's not messing around, right? But in pro rugby, they have long-term, well-established strength standards like that. Like you should be able to say trap bar deadlift 2.5 times your body weight, squat 2 times your body weight, bench 1.5 times your body weight, things like that. And I'm 26-year-old ice hockey player looking at these numbers, and I was thinking, I thought I was trained, I thought I was strong throughout my career. It's like if anyone had given me a program to do or anything like that, it's like I was the first guy to do it. Like it wasn't because I was lazy or anything like that, but I just didn't understand what strong was. I thought I was strong. I was always one of the fittest, stronger guys on my team, but really I was nowhere close, especially to play the type of game that I had to play. And like SSC coaches and in performance sport, you have those strength standards mainly for an injury prevention thing rather than a sports performance thing. Yes, being strong will improve your ability to perform a sport. If you can produce a large amount of force, you will be a faster skater. You will be able to shoot harder. You will be harder to knock off the puck, all that sort of stuff. But the main thing is your body will be more robust when it comes to going into contact. And that's the big focus, which I try and have with a lot of the kids when I'm working with England or at the gym. Like, these kids have been asked to play contact at 12 years old. Sometimes they will be playing contact, like someone that's, I don't know, like 130 centimeters will be playing a contact sport at a high level with someone that's 40 centimeters taller and 30 kilos heavier, right? Almost twice the weight, because in ice hockey we have like such a wide range in how players mature, right? And we have to think about, when do we start that physical development? When do we start that strength development? And so we have, like, in the gym, we have certain strength standards and like a long-term athletic development model, where if you're a player of a certain age, I want you to be able to, like, say, like, goblet squat 50% of your body weight for reps. Or when you start learning how to back squat, it's like after a certain amount of time, we want you to get to squatting your body weight. If you're playing a sport at a high level, you should really be doing more, sort of like 1.5 times your body weight or something like that. Same goes with like bench press. Trap bar deadlift is a really, really good one. I want all my youth athletes to be trap bar deadlifting like 2 times their body weight, like after they've been practicing and doing it for a while. And that's a really easy way that you can tell if someone is potentially ready to go play a high impact contact sport like ice hockey, and they're going to be able to enjoy the rigors of it. And it is like, I'm so much stronger now than I was when I was playing pro hockey. Like, most of those strength standards now, it's like I have a much better chance of hitting them now than I did when I was playing. And what I want to do is just like open people's eyes to that, so they can do all that stuff before they're playing at a high level and before their injury risk really, really gets to its peak.
Yeah. So this is not a regrets question, but if you were now to go back to that youth athlete stage, whatever you feel is that prime starting time, what would you, knowing what you know now, what would you change for yourself physically to give yourself a better chance with the career and reduce injuries?
I'd just focus much more on trying to establish like a foundation of strength, really. What is tricky, because it's, in one regard, like a lot of players still right now, it's like they can't get in a bloody gym because they're not 16, so that culture is starting to change. But for me, like, I would have done whatever I can to just try and be strong. And even if it's just like hammering the push-ups, hammering the pull-ups and stuff like that, doing bodyweight exercises to a really, really good level, and being really diligent on that, and just having a focus where knowing if I don't do that, I'm increasing my risk of getting hurt. And that's the big things for parents. I think, I'm a parent, you're a parent. Like, if I want my kids to play sport, if my kids want to, I want them to have the opportunity to play at a high level. And I want to do whatever they can to make sure that if that's a path that they want, they're not going to go play sport at a high level and then suffer with loads of injuries that can impede their progress, or can limit their potential careers after sport and things like that too. Like, it's, the wear and tear of injuries, it affects like every aspect of life, right? It's, and I don't have any regrets. Like, I'm not, it's just like, I very much see my injury history and stuff like that as an aha moment for me, because it's made me so much better at what I do now. So it's like, for me, it's like that was always my path that I was supposed to take, right? I was, to a degree, I was supposed to get hurt. I was supposed to, because it's led me down this route. And now what is more meaningful is if I can help prevent the next generation of athletes from going through those injuries, then that's a massive plus, and that's what I get satisfaction out of now, right?
Yeah. Is there a certain age? Is there a starting age where you feel athletes should be starting to pay more attention to strength and conditioning?
Pay more attention. Yeah, it depends on how you define it, right? Strength and conditioning can start at any age, and you don't necessarily have to label it as strength and conditioning. It can be athletic development, right? For example, the academy sessions that we do at Ozone with our young athlete academy, like we start from 6, and so from 6 to 10, our focus is basically get in the gym. Yeah, we're trying to sort of teach you how to be strong, trying to teach you how to challenge yourself. But really, number one goal is have fun. And then the number 2 goal is just learn the fundamental movement skills, like squatting, like lunging, like hinge patterns, deadlift patterns, things like that. Doing stuff which are very low risk, but we still want to give the kids an opportunity to learn the technique of certain things. Like we still get kids of that age trying how to goblet squat, trap bar deadlift, that sort of stuff, but we're just mitigating the risks. And the focus is not the number one focus is not trying to go heavy. That's like the lower tier focus. The main thing is get them comfortable with the environment, get them to be really good movers with primarily their body weight, because then later on, that's basically our first category of classes is the training fundamentals, the really young ones, the 6 to 10. Then our second category of classes is the learn to train. So that goes 11 to 14. And that's where you sort of take all those skills you learn in the fundamentals, but you apply them with a bit more structure, with a bit more purpose, because in my opinion, that's the age really that you want to start maximizing strength, power, a bit of hypertrophy, because during that time, that's the age range where most players will go through their peak height velocity, their big growth spurt, right? And if you think about what happens to the body to facilitate that rapid growth, a lot of it is to do with hormones, a lot of it is to do with neuroplasticity. It's actually a key window of opportunity. If we're going to develop the best athletes we can, they have to be training during that time, and they have to be trying to get strong and trying to get powerful and learn all their sports specific skills during that time, because all the things that start circulating around their body to have that rapid development, they're all the same things that people take when they're doping, like testosterone, human growth hormone, and things like that. It's research has shown that youth athletes that are resistance training during that time, they will almost every time be a stronger adult, and they will be more likely to hit their true strength potential because they have participated in resistance training during that key window of growth. So that's 11 to 14, and then our older category is like the 15 plus. We call that the train to compete. And the big rationale with that is, so ideally everyone would have graduated through the first 2 classes, so you've got decent training experience, you've already had some training adaptations, and then at that point you're getting ready for the high level competition, because at what age can people, specifically in ice hockey, the best junior players are going to start playing with men at 16, right? So like I've literally been given this presentation to some of the England boys this week. At 16 years old, they have to be ready to go and battle on the ice against me, right? 6'4", 17 stuff. So my thought process more is sort of backtracks from that. If they're not strong at 16, we're putting them in a position to potentially get hurt, right? And so how do we put them in a position to be the best athlete possible at 16, 17, 18? We have to give them as much training experience as possible in the lead up to that. We can't just start training them at 15 and expect them to be a high level athlete at 16. You know, a lot of the youth guys that I've trained, like my first hockey client, I I started training him at 9 years old. He's 15 now, and you know, he can deadlift perfectly. He can front squat perfectly. He can do a lot of like complex gym-based movements to a high level, better than most personal trainers would. But it's because he started training at 9 years old, and you know, that is the big benefit of training with the youth. Is by the time he can get his first gym membership, he's already been lifting for 7 years. Right, so he can go embark on his own training program. He's had loads of education on how to do everything. He's learned loads of education on program structure and things like that. And that's how you set the youth up to succeed, in my opinion. You know, imagine it's like someone's going to go sit their GCSEs in maths or whatever at 16 years old, but they've not attended a maths class since they were 8. You know, it's like they're going to fail. Like they're going to suck. And it's like, we can't be expecting people to be athletes at 16 years old if they don't train, if they're not given an opportunity to be in a gym. And that culture is changing really, really rapidly, which is great. You know, and there's nothing inherently unsafe about it. Right? Kids are more robust than most adults, to be honest. So, you know, the injury risk and stuff like that, or stunted growth that people are often worried about. You know, the research over the last, basically since 2000s, has found none of that really to be true. If it's well-structured training and with youth, it's supervised, you know, it's beneficial in so many different aspects.
That's what I mean, because there's probably some people here thinking about your athlete that you started with at 9 and probably picturing them as 4 foot, right? Because that's still a big concern for parents that, you know, that it stunts the growth. And as you said, it has been debunked, and again, the benefits massively outweigh anything that was originally a concern. And you did mention that a bit earlier. One of the issues we have in youth sport is the lack of knowledge. What kind of barriers have you seen talking to parents or trying to get people into off-ice training, and how have you overcome that?
I guess a lot of the barriers just kind of exist in, like, a lot of it is probably organizational wise, you know, like when, like I've had England players which I've trained, but I've trained at camp or something like that. They're on a program, but say they play in like Oxford or they play in Kent or something, and they're 14, 15 years old. They know what to do in the gym because I've already taught them, and they just need somewhere to go. Like, often those are the hardest barriers we face these days. Is like, I've had to email gym managers and stuff like that and just be like, look, so and so is a talented athlete, plays in the England setup, looking to play in the GB setup. They have to be trained for their athletic development. If, you know, with sort of like, I confirm they can do all this stuff, I confirm they will only be on the program which I specify. I would be happy to share the program with the gym manager if they want to see what they're doing. You know, would you be willing to allow so and so to train there? It's very hard for them to actually say yes. Like, those are the big barriers in terms of just access to gyms, really. In most cases, parents are dead keen. You know, there's some initial reservations potentially about how heavy you should go and stuff like that. You know, like sometimes I get a parent messaging me with like taking a video of their kid doing an exercise, and they're like, "What do you think? Blah blah blah. Are they ready to go up?" You know, and I take one look at it and I'll be like, "Yeah, I would put another 20 kilos on the bar. Like, go for it," because there's absolutely nothing wrong, but there's almost just that intuition that, oh, I need to watch out because he's a kid. And I have a bit of a different mindset for that. I use something, well, I kind of sort of just invented it as my own little tool. I call it like the 7 out of 10 rule, where you have technical proficiency, and then you have RPE. So RPE, for anyone that isn't versed in this sort of lingo, is just how hard was it, basically. So if you do an exercise and you do an exercise for 5 reps, say, and it was like really hard to get that 5th rep, then that'd be like a 9-10 RPE. If it was really easy, you feel like you could have done loads more reps, then it'd be pretty low. It'd be like 3 or 4 RPE. And then, so I kind of combine that when I'm watching someone do an exercise. It doesn't have to be a kid, could be an adult. I have like a 7 out of 10 rule where I want technique to be 7 out of 10 or better. And I want RPE. If I'm being conservative, this can change, but it's like RPE, we want it to be 7 out of 10 or lower, right? And so say if, I'm watching an athlete do a trap bar deadlift, say they're like 12 years old or something, they've got 50 kilos on the bar. I watch them do it and they do their reps. Technique looks fine. Say technique is like 7, 8 out of 10. Just in my own little mental model of what the technique should look like. Then, I ask them, how hard did it feel? And also I can look and I can tell how hard it is depending on how fast they lift it and stuff. So obviously having experience in this really helps. But if they say, oh yeah, it was like 5 or 6 out of 10, in my opinion, there's no reason not to go up in weight if the athlete wants to go up, if we feel like it would be positive for their training stimulus. Mm-hmm. And where that changes is, as soon as one of those bounds sort of goes out of, of that framework, really, like if technique starts to digress and it's now like, okay, technique's like 5 out of 10, but the athlete's saying it's still a 6 or 7, then I'd be like, okay, well, stay at the same weight because I want to see you do it with proficient technique at that weight first, just to make sure we're not going to put you in a situation where you lift a heavier weight with poor technique.
Yeah.
So
I do similar here. I call it technical strength and absolute strength are 2 different things. And for most people, whether you're training youth or anybody in the gym, I do believe you work to that technical strength up to the point where you are nailing it habitually, and then you can start pushing the absolute. If the absolute needs to be pushed, obviously in sport it does more so than your kind of average lifters. But I think it's the most sensible approach. Nobody needs to get hurt just because you're training. It's not normal to have a workout routine and get to a point where you're injured all the time. That's the sign of overtraining, ego lifting. It's just not necessary. So what's one big hope if we're just looking at youth, S&C in general, athletes? What's your biggest hope for that level of athlete?
I'd say the hope is, I think, just a willingness to prioritize the athleticism aspect. If we're talking about ice hockey specifically, but this will apply to all sports, that the culture prioritizes developing as an athlete early on, kind of more than them developing the sport-specific skills, I think. There's like a lot of the belief is athletes shouldn't specialize too early and stuff like that. I'm kind of a proponent of that, but I also believe the benefits that come from playing multiple sports could be met with, if you do want to specialize in your sport and that's your only sport, if you do enough SSC or athletic development to go around with it, then that kind of satisfies that multi-skill element. There's a lot of parents that, and to be fair, it doesn't just apply to youth sports. A lot of the time, S&C is like box check, so they go do their S&C session once a week and it's like, okay, cool. But they can still be on the ice 5 times a week, or they can still, kind of have these things which are considered like a much higher priority. And I think that needs to be moved more towards the athletic development side. So like I kind of like my athletes to however much they're on the ice doing their sport-specific practice, they should be doing just as much athletic development stuff. And that can be playing a different sport. That can be obviously in the gym. But if you have too high a ratio of a sport-specific stuff, then it's really hard to counteract a lot of the deficiencies that athletes have that are shaped by their activity. Like, most of the time, like when you get to the higher levels, specifically of ice hockey, you don't need to train them to be ice hockey players. You've got to kind of train them because they've been just doing ice hockey for such a long time. Yeah. So you have to give them something that looks nothing like ice hockey to just bring the level back, bring the balance back to making them well-rounded athletes. And that will often, just because they're generally a bit stronger, a bit more powerful, a bit healthier, that will allow them to excel more in their sport. And a lot of the time, the lens is sport. Very little athletic development. And, that applies for parents and youth and things like that. But it also applies to the elite levels, in terms of it's like sometimes, the 2-a-day on ices and stuff like that is kind of like, okay, like if you're on the ice so much, you're going to have diminishing returns at some point in terms of becoming a better ice hockey player, so having the skew sort of swing back to looking at the athlete as a whole. I think, and I guess big picture stuff, if you have a culture that supports that, then the opportunities to get to the gym, the more people training youth will come because the opportunities will be there from a business standpoint. It's already like changed massively. So, one of my hopes would be every kid that plays sport would be able to get to the gym. But I kind of feel like that's going to be happening anyway, because that's the way it's trending towards. But it's in the leading sports countries in the world, they place a massive priority on general athletic development, like the US, like China, Russia. They do specialize in sport pretty early, but it comes with so many different athletic development sort of rationale too.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? It's, yes, a kid might be playing hockey at 10, 11, 12, but they could change at any point. They could, go to school, try a new sport, love it. And if you've got the athletic capabilities, if you're explosive, if you're fast, if you're dynamic, you can move those skills across from S&C training or multi-sport training. Whereas if you're just focused on one, it does make it a lot harder. A lot more challenging. So I got one more big question for you. Now we're going to roll back a couple of decades because we're not spring chickens anymore. And if you were chatting to little Rup about what was to come in sport and in, knowing what you know now, what would you say to him?
Just work hard and enjoy it. I know, I could impart loads of wisdom about it. So yeah, you should train like this, you should train like that. But at the end of the day, it's like I've gone through many times in my sporting career and my professional career where, I've sort of been hampered by a lot of pressure or lost confidence because of a certain scenario and stuff like that. And what has always helped me is like getting a really good dose of perspective, and at the end of the day, it's just like the sport. Like, it's not the end of the world if you don't make it. It's great if you do make it. It's great, but you have to enjoy it. It's not worth doing if you don't enjoy it. There's, there were lots of times where I was off playing in Canada and I was speaking to my old strap mates and they would sort of speak to me as if like, oh, what you're doing is so amazing, like blah, blah, blah. And in my head, I didn't see it that way because I was always like, I want to get here or I want to get there or I want to get there. And it's like, probably didn't take enough times in my career to actually like sit back and really enjoy like the good moments. if you know what I mean. And, you know, sport is fun, should be fun. Winning should be fun. Losing probably won't be quite as much fun, but the fact that you're on the field of play and you're competing, you know, that's just the fact that someone's in that situation that they can go and do that. Always cherish it, because, you know, there's lots of people in this world that are not blessed, whether it be because they've got a disability or, you know, whether they just don't have the opportunity. They've got like real life struggles. And sport should be fun. Sport should be amazing and awesome. It's a wicked way to develop discipline, to you know, meet friends, have social circles, like meet people who will be a part of your life forever. Like, you know, like you know my partner Jay, Shaun, you know, it's like she's been around ice hockey circles for a long time, right? You know, like it's you know, just enjoy it. Yes, you want to be a high level. Everyone wants to make it to the Olympics or whatever, but always remember, it's just a sport. Don't let the pressure get to you. If you are free of that pressure and you're able to go play with confidence, you will be a better player anyway. You know, work hard, but enjoy it.
Yeah, solid advice. Rube, if anybody wanted to check out what you're doing, get involved with what you're doing, where can they find you?
Yeah, wicked. So best thing to do is probably on Instagram. My handle is Train Hockey Smart. That's the business handle. Then I have my my personal handle, which is Rupert Quiney MSc as well. Instagram, yeah, that's probably the best way to just quickly see the type of stuff that we do. And if you DM me or comment and stuff, then it's just me on the other end. I don't have a market manager or like a big, you know, organizational thing or anything like that. So that's probably the easiest way to get in touch. And I'm more than happy, if anyone's got any questions, more than happy for anyone to just fire it away.
Yeah, and if anyone hasn't been down to the Ozone yet in Bracknell, you know, you are ice hockey fan or you've got players, go and check it out. The boys are always happy to let you look around and just check out the facility. It's not, you don't have to go through a reception and there's barriers. It's quite an open door policy, and go and see what they're doing there. You know, it's fantastic. And even if it's not ice hockey, if you are local to Bracknell, youth sport, you know, what you've set up there in the rink and that facility, it's absolutely spot on. So I'd encourage anybody to go check it out. But Rube, thank you so much for joining me today. It's always great to hear more about other players and other athletes. So I really appreciate you sharing your story today.
No, thank you, mate. Really appreciate the opportunity. It's always fun talking shop with a former player, but also, you know, fellow trainer as well. So.
Yeah, exactly. Doing the Lord's work, I like to say that we're doing.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Thank you for everybody that tuned in today. If you took anything away, brilliant. Our job here is done. If you feel like somebody needs to hear this, please share the episode directly with them. All our job is to help one person today, and that's all we're here to do on the Always Another Game podcast. And as I love to remind you all before you go, that there is always another game, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thank you, everyone.